a small plane, to men, and a mission that was not just life-threatening, but even today seems absolutely impossible. A strange dream of a Las Vegas shuttle owner to keep an airplane in the airnet for hours or days, but for months without touching the ground. This wasn't just about fuel. This is a story of sleep deprivation, December cold, and maintaining a delicate balance between life and death. But the question is, could these two pilots really break what seemed like an impossible record? Or did their plane disappear for a variant of the blue sky? A strange event in history that is now lost somewhere in the books. Welcome once again, viewers, to Discover TV's videos. In 1956, a man named Warren Bailey opened a hotel in Las Vegas that was quite different from the city's other big casinos and hotels because simple, rural people used to come here. This hotel, named Hacienda, wasn't very expensive, which is why ordinary people like coming here. But since the profits were quite low, Warren Bailey kept thinking of new ideas to make his hotel famous. One day, his army pilot friend named Bob Timm suggested that if a world record was broken, it could really help make Hacienda famous. He was hinting at flying a planet that would stay in the air for not just days but months without touching the ground. Warren liked the idea a lot, but could it really help promote his hotel? And above all, how would it be possible? It's important to understand that when airplanes were invented, their flight time is to be recorded in seconds. For pilots and mechanics, what mattered most was how long an aircraft could stay in the air. With time, planes advanced, and so did their flight time, until fuel tank capacity became the limiting factor. In 1923, the U.S. Army solved this problem by refueling one plane in midair from another. Soon after that, the first entrance flight record was broken. A DA for B plane broke it by refueling 9 times in the air and flying continuously for 37 hours. After that, a new era of breaking world records began. America caught the entrance flight fever, and in 1929 alone, this record was broken 5 times. But by the time Bob Timm was giving this idea to Warren, the craze for this record had cooled down, because now it wasn't about aircraft engines or fuel tanks. It was about testing the physical limits of the human body. Bob Timm was talking about breaking a world record set in 1949 by the Navy pilots who flew in Aeronca sedan plane for 46 days non-stop in the air, and their mission received huge media coverage. Warren Bailey, the owner of Hacienda, thought this idea could really help promote his hotel. He requested Bob Timm himself to complete the mission Beckhouse. After all, Bob Timm was a well-known WWI pilot.
Team first went to McCarran Airport, bought a Cessna 172 aircraft, and hired a mechanic to modify the plane for endurance flight. They removed the CO pilot seat first, because if Team was going to stay in the air for over a month, he'd surely need a CO pilot. Both pilots would fly in shifts, one handling the controls while the other would sleep on a foam pad placed where the CO pilot seat used to be. They also removed the rear bench and created an 8-square-foot storage area to keep essentials. In one corner of the cabin, they fitted a small sink so they could sometimes take sponge baths inside the 4-foot-tall cabin. They then installed a 995-gallon belly tank so the plane could have an extra fuel tank in addition to the wings. An electric winch was added to the belly tank to pull up the fuel hose during flight. The CO pilot's door was removed and replaced with a folding door to provide easy access to the belly tank fuel port. Today, hanging from a plane mid-flight is seen only in movies, but back then, it was quite common. By the 1950s, aerial stuntmen performed many such scenes requiring in-flight transfers. To reduce refueling risks, a small foldable platform was added outside the CO pilot's door, allowing the pilot to stand and connect the pipe to the belly tank. It was the only place on the Cessna 172 where one could stand upright. Inside, there was only room to sit or lie down. They made several engine modifications and painted Hacienda big and bold outside the plane, the primary goal of this mission. Then came the test flights. In the summer of 1958, the test flights began, but problems followed one after another. The first CO pilot Team hired didn't get along with him. During test flights, they often disagreed. The first test flight failed, so did the second, and during the third, the fight got so bad that Team fired the CO pilot. The issue was in the exhaust valve, which kept overheating. They launched the mission 3 times but failed miserably each time. Meanwhile, while they were conducting Gunsourceforce test flights, pilots Jim Hett and Bill Burkett managed to fly the same Cessna 172 for 50 days above Dallas, breaking the world record. By December, Team had resolved the plane's issues, and finally, on December 4th, 1958, they were ready. Officials from the Fédération Aéronautique Internationale (FAI) were present to monitor the mission. To avoid fraud, Timm and his new CO pilot, John Cook, took off and immediately landed on the runway again so that a chase car could paint the tires with special white paint. If they landed secretly later, the paint would wear off, invalidating the record.
12 hours later, at the first refueling, they approached a pre-designated road where a refueling truck was waiting. As the plane aligned with the truck, the driver floored the accelerator. The plane had to fly at its minimum speed 100 kilometers per hour since the truck couldn't go any faster. When Hacienda was just 20 feet above the truck in the line, the co-pilot dropped the winch. Workers in the truck attached a hose, and the winch pulled it up. The pipe was connected to the belly tank port, and then the truck was signaled to start the fuel pump. For the next 3 minutes, Hacienda and the truck moved perfectly in sync. Any slight error in speed could have meant death. After filling the belly tank, the co-pilot dropped the pipe back down, and they took off again for another 12 hours. If they were to break the 50-day record, they'd need to repeat this process at least 100 times. For the next few days, Timm and Cook flew only over Las Vegas so they'd be near a landing strip in case of problems. But once things seemed fine, they started spending more time over the deserted fields of California. At higher altitudes, fuel efficiency improves, but temperatures drop to freezing, and due to door modifications, the plane's insulation was poor. To stay warm, they chose to fly at low altitudes. The views were better during the day, but at night, mountains and clouds could be deadly. Living together for so long in close quarters, the two pilots became good friends. They read books, exercised, and chatted to pass time. During the daily refuels, they also pulled up not just fuel, but essentials like water containers, engine oil, and meals prepared by Hacienda's chef. You might wonder, where did the food go after being eaten? They had a folding camp toilet seat in the plane, under which a waste bag was placed. These plastic waste bags were actually dumped over the deserted California fields. They never said this publicly, but Cook's wife revealed it after his death. Timm and Cook had spent 36 days in the air. They even spent New Year's Eve in the plane, but fatigue and stress were taking their toll. Sleeping in the noisy cabin was difficult. One night, Timm dozed off at the controls, just minutes before Cook's shift was to start. Incredibly, he stayed asleep for another hour, while the plane flew straight on autopilot. When Timm woke up, the plane was flying low through a canyon in an unknown area. Had he slept a few minutes more, the plane would have crashed into a mountain, as autopilot only keeps the plane level, it doesn't avoid obstacles. On January 12, day 39, a serious issue occurred. The plane's generator failed. This meant no more radio, lights, heater, or fuel pumping system from the belly tank to the wings. The ground crew sent up a small wind turbine that could only generate enough electricity for radios. For the remaining days, fuel had to be pumped manually by hand. With no lights, night refueling became extremely difficult, especially during the new moon. They solved this by tying a flashlight to the winch so the ground crew could see where to attach the pipe. A second truck with a searchlight was driven 300 feet ahead of the refueling truck. As days passed, more issues emerged. The fuel gauge broke, the tachometer failed, and carbon began to build up in the engine. When January 23rd finally arrived, Hacienda began getting the publicity wherein Bailey had hoped for. He made a schedule for the plane to fly over every major city, had it published in newspapers so people could see and cover the historic moment. Once, he even sent up a separate plane filled with photographers to fly alongside Hacienda and take memorable photos. To make the moment even more iconic, co-pilot Cook pretended to clean the windscreen mid-flight. The newspapers published the photo, and the whole country focused on this historic flight. At 3:50 p.m. on January 23rd, Hacienda broke the 50-day record, but Timm and Cook decided not to land. As long as the plane could fly, they would continue, and so they spent another 14 days in the air. Eventually, the plane was no longer capable of flying. On February 7, 1959, after spending 64 days, 22 hours, 19 minutes, and 5 seconds in the air, they finally requested landing permission from McCarran Field Control Tower and landed the plane. A crowd of press and people from all over the country gathered at the airport to witness this historic moment. Among them were supporters, record officials, journalists, Timm's wife and children, and the entire Hacienda hotel staff. That Timm and Cook were in such bad shape they couldn't even get out of the plane by themselves. Officials confirmed that the white tire paint was still completely intact, proving the plane had truly stayed airborne for 64 days without landing. In 2015, The FAA officially discontinued mid-endurance flight records due to increasing risk to life, meaning Timm and Cook's world record will now remain unbreakable forever. The Cessna 172 that set this world record still hangs in the baggage claim reef McCarran International Airport Terminal 1, continuing to tell its story to this day. We hope you thoroughly like and share this Discover TV video. Thank you so much for your warm comments. See you in the next amazing one.